Hey, I'm James from Smoking Out Barbecue, and this is Backyard Barbecue Rescue, the show where I travel on site to meet a real family struggling with a backyard barbecue classic. And today's episode is brisket. So I'm just outside Chicago, Illinois, on my way to go meet Sam, whose family entered him on his behalf, saying that he's an amazing cook for everything except brisket.
I would equate his brisket to either a solid oak tree with bark so thick that it can't even be used for furniture, or in other attempts, to a gymnastics floor routine mat that is so rubbery and bouncy that it could turn even a mediocre gymnast into a high-flying champion. The bottom line is that he's just too good of a chef to be churning out a bad brisket. So that is why we have one simple request. Girls, please help!
Well, just 24 hours ago, I was at Memphis in May and tasted some award-winning barbecue. So I think we're dialed in on what a great brisket should taste like. Let's go taste Sam's version, see if we can come up with a game plan to help win his family's approval. Let's go meet him.
Why don't you let me make the burgers in the oven?
Dry.
That is so rubbery and bouncy.
Chicken skin.
Making sure it's tender.
Burn!
You are judged by your brisket.
James, I can't cook ribs for crap.
James, please help rescue Sam's barbecue!
Hi, my name's Sam. I reached out to James to help me with my brisket. It's the one cook I just haven't been able to master over the years. So yeah, two things I was hoping he could help me with are just the, the tenderness of my flat. Sometimes it's just a little dry, can't seem to get it right. And then if we could increase that smoke, I mean, that would be terrific. So looking forward to getting James in on my brisket.
Yeah, awesome. That's okay. So I had a chance to taste Sam's brisket last night, and hey, just to reassure you, like we're nitpicking on the last few details. You've got an amazing platform to build on, but I did get a chance to experience the two things that Sam mentioned. So the first thing I noticed when we went to go do the pull test or do the finger bend test is we are a little bit tight, and I got a clue. When you said we cooked it to about 197, saw one probe at 200, and then it went into the rest. So the one thing we're gonna focus on today is cooking to a feel, not necessarily a temperature. And that's gonna help solve the lack of bend and the white sort of non-rendered fat. When we went to go stretch it, there was still a lot of resistance. And then the other thing we'll focus on is upping the smoke flavor. So for our game plan, we're gonna start first with an amazing looking brisket. So thanks so much Meat and Bone for sending along a prime grade Packer brisket. A great product, always helps, sort of garbage in, garbage out mentality. Amazing in, you increase your chances of getting amazing out. We got started just before 7 this morning. So starting yesterday is when our cook started, shortly after tasting Sam's version. I want to get a dry brine on this brisket. Did you dry brine yours yesterday?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so that's a great thing to already have in the arsenal. So the only thing that I'm going to change up is my family's favorite SPG rub. So this is one that we've made from Franklin's, Black's, as well as Goldie's. We took our favorite things from each of those three rubs, as you saw me put that together. So to make that happen, I just use our pepper cannon, set it to about 27 clicks from the finest setting to get the mesh that I like, and grind up all our fresh spices. That recipe is on my website for free, so I'll put a link down below rather than read off all the ingredients, but that went together fairly straightforward. For our trim, always like when I'm showing up somewhere new to see, are we starting with a sharp knife? You're in pretty good shape, but not quite passing the paper test. So using the tumbler knife sharpener that they sent along just for this trip, assuming that we might run into some potentially dull knives. A whetstone I've tried using, you can do it, but that's a skill. It takes a lot of practice. So the tumbler just made quick work, and we were able to trim up the brisket no problem. After we got it trimmed, I used like what I always use. Costco now carries Truff hot sauce, so we use that as a binder. Got on our rub and then put that in the refrigerator overnight, so that we once again have a dry brine, which is going to help us retain more moisture. The only difference that we're doing from a cook today versus Sam's version yesterday is we are flipping from fat cap down to fat cap up. And the reason that I absolutely love this is I haven't even removed my bracelet. I just came from Memphis in May. Any competition barbecue or any of the best places in Texas, this is how you do it. Now, most of them are cooking on an offset cooker, and so a year or two ago I picked up one of those to start seeing what I could translate to the Joe. And the setup that we're going to use today, I've been getting amazing results with fat cap up, so that's just going to give us a little bit more flavor. rather than losing all that fat cap to the board when we slice it. For our grill setup, Fogo was kind enough to send me along with a truckload full of Fogo charcoal. So I grabbed the gold bag for today's cook, and we placed the smoking wood under the charcoal. Is that something you did yesterday? I forgot to ask.
Yeah, just north, south, east, west, 4
awesome.
chunks.
So we're doing the exact same thing today in terms of getting some smoking wood underneath. The only difference is once we have a nice hot fire and we're up to temperature and passing the hand test, I'm gonna get us a little bit extra smoke. That's something that you wanted to work on by placing a piece of smoking wood in that freshly lit charcoal. Then when we drop down our heat deflectors and the slow roller, which Kamado Joe was kind enough to send you for this episode. So thanks Team Kamado Joe for sending along a slow roller for Sam to get to experience in today's brisket, which should help with our smoke and convection and getting that to adhere to our brisket. But I've dropped this slow roller on top of the heat deflectors for my double indirect setup on a Series 1. I have a guide. It's shared for free on every video that I do, but if you want a quick one-page guide or a summary, I've got that on the website as well for Joe Jr., Classic, Big Joe, Series 1, 2, and 3, every little setup. But this is the setup for the slow roller in the Series 1, Series 2, Classic, or Big Joe that we went with today. And then we put our divide and conquer rack on top of the slow roller, got our brisket. Meter sent us a brand new Meter 2 that we're able to track along with today's cook. And if I show you a quick comparison so far of the chart yesterday versus today, that really comes down to how we set up. So I noticed looking at your chart, we sort of had some spikes. I suspect that's you interacting with either the vents or opening and closing the dome.
Correct.
And so one of the things that I always try and share is just following sort of that same basic setup that gives us guaranteed results every time. So by getting our dome heat soaked, then dropping in a piece of wood and then all of our deflector plates with our vents open, we're going to be able to burn nice clean smoke for that first 20 minutes or so while our grill is coming back up to temperature. And then as we slowly work our vents into the position where we're about 1/8 of an inch past the first line for between 270 and 300 degrees Fahrenheit and one finger on the bottom, you'll see in the meter chart we are getting nice stable line. The only time it's changing is when we've opened to spray on 2 occasions so far, about 5 hours in for today's cook. As the fire burns down, we'll switch to our secondary smoking wood that we've placed underneath the coals. And I'll show you a little clip of that later. We've also just added a handful of pellets in addition to the smoking wood chunks, which had just started to smolder after a couple hours of being in the grill. So we have just crossed 165 to 170 degrees. So this is a perfect time to move into the foil boat. We were not getting any burning on the bottom, but we don't want to go much earlier. If you start this in the 140s and the 150s, the brisket is going to push out too much tallow, and we're basically doing a tallow confit style brisket rather than a smoked brisket. So by going a little bit later with the boat, we'll still get some of that tallow pushing out, but not so much that our boat is going to overflow and sink. No sinking boats. We don't want that. So that's it for the next little bit. I'll rejoin you in a couple hours. The game plan is just to let this continue to cook until we are probe tender, and our probe goes in as if we are probing room temperature butter. And once it's nice and tender, we'll let it rest outside. If the rain holds off for about 10-15 minutes until I start to see the temperature dropping, and then I know it's safe for us to completely wrap it in a towel and put it in a cooler, and it will not continue to carry over cook. If we were to do that right away, it'll keep cooking and take advantage of the energy that is still causing the brisket to rise in temperature, and we'll end up really overshooting the temperature that we want. So by making sure that we let it rest those 15-20 minutes, that'll help make sure that we don't overcook our brisket. And we'll see you a little bit later on when we've got family and friends here, hopefully to validate we've saved Sam's brisket. We'll see you soon. Well, certainly looks good. Let's see how we did. Juices galore, nice waterfall. Looks pretty. Let's get a couple slices out of our flat. So we're looking for flop, where it's folding right over the finger, hold up under its own weight, and then just a slight pull, come right apart. Okay, moment of truth. Let's dive in for our taste test. So we've got some flat, our point end. Why don't you start us off?
All right. Want to go with me?
Sure, I'll go with you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Nailed it.
That's good.
So good.
What do you think of the tenderness?
So juicy.
That's the lean.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the lean part. Let's get a couple other people, have them do a sample, see what they think.
Sounds like a plan.
Delicious. Very tender. Lots of flavor. Really good.
Amazing. It's definitely more tender, a little more smokier. Good combination. Excellent.
Thanks.
All right, let me try this. Moment of truth. See if Smoking Dad barbecue is as good as they say it is. It's really good. No, it's really good. I like the bark. It's one thing I was questioning about was how good the bark would be on a Kamado compared to mine. It's much better than mine, so no, it's really good. Not disappointed. No, I have to tell them.
What's that?
Just tell them.
Yeah. Well, welcome to a little segment I like to call the Drive Home. But this is an opportunity to recap the key skills. If you have any of the same issues that Sam is running into with his brisket, what are the few things that we changed that you can apply at home? And I'm not actually driving home. I'm on my way to Atlanta, Georgia right now to meet David, who's struggling with his chicken skin. But the two things that Sam was running into with his brisket was first, the lack of smoke, and the second is the tenderness. And this was a clue that I experienced almost immediately from walking in the door when I heard Sam say he pulled the brisket off at 197. And this is cooking to a temperature versus a probe field. Temperature can be deceiving. In fact, it is very deceiving because I've had briskets done anywhere from 197 all the way up to 211. So if you rely on a temperature, no matter what you pick, it's just coming down to luck of the draw if that's actually when your brisket is done. So when I showed Sam the feel of room temperature butter with our Chef's Temp X10 when we were probing it, he said this is not part of his normal practice, and anytime he has probed a brisket, they never felt this tender. And so that's what helped eradicate still having some white fat in our flat and causing it to be very tough to the pull versus the flop over the finger, very easy to get to fly like a bird and pull apart with minimal effort. The second issue that he wanted to work on is smoke. And so this just comes down to how we set up our grill. So by making sure we had some good wood smoke underneath our charcoal, I went with 4 pieces today, as well as sneaking 1 extra piece in right when we install the cold deflectors and the slow roller. That's what we need to take advantage of our vents being open and get some early smoke on our brisket. So the smoke was broken into almost 3 stages, if you will. First, the smoking wood piece on top, that's getting smoke immediately when we put our brisket on. The second stage of smoke is the smoking wood under the charcoal. That'll come into effect in about 30 to 40 minutes once it starts to smolder. And then the third source of smoke, you saw when we added the wood as well as some supplemental pellets into the ash drawer. This normally kicks in at about the 2-hour mark. So we go through our wood progressively and we can continue adding those pellets or wood chips or smaller chunks into the ash drawer and get smoke on the brisket all day long. Well, that's it for this episode. I'm off to Georgia. I'll see you there.
Don't be afraid to fire it up.
That is fantastic.
Argon wet is fantastic.
That's so good. 100 times better.
Cheers.
Cheers. This is night and day.
I would eat this every day. That's incredible.
I'm gonna have that.
Awesome. Smoky.
Restaurant quality, dude.
We have to tell people you're a chef too.
45 years in the industry.